I want to introduce or bring in Andrij Dobriansky. You've been with us before. He's the Director of Communications and Media for the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America. Good morning. Good to see you again, Andrij.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on.
So this is an important meeting tomorrow at the White House. President Trump has said he's willing to consider sending Tomahawks to Ukraine. When he was asked by reporters about this, he said he'd consider it. But earlier this week, he told a reporter, I might have to speak to Russia about that. And then, as we know, Vladimir Putin said in early October, supplying Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine would mark a completely new stage of escalation in U.S.-Russia relations. Andrij, is escalation needed right now, or is de-escalation needed at the moment?
I think President Trump realizes, and this has been happening for the last couple of months, we saw President Trump's groundbreaking change of strategy in July when he invited the head of NATO, and he said, I'm going to change the way that weapons are supplied to Ukraine. European money coming to the United States, American-made weapons go to Ukraine. The first tranches of those weapons started in September after the summit in Alaska, which President Trump made very clear. He made all the effort to give Putin an off-ramp, and Putin has verbally declared that he's not interested in further meetings now. So what President Trump did is he started delivering the weapons with European money paying for them. He met with President Zelenskyy at the end of September. They both saw the progress that those weapons under President Trump's plan have made targeting Russian energy. This is a win-win for the United States. If we target Russian energy facilities, Russia is now exporting close to 20% less gas and liquefied natural gas and their oil deliveries. This is a win for American oil production and liquefied natural gas to Europe. And at the same time, President Trump is able to tighten the noose around Russia. If they don't want to come to the table when he invites them to Alaska and has a nice conversation, President Trump has other ways of forcing people to the table. We saw that with Iran, but we're not going to do that with a strike on Russia, the United States. So what we're going to do is we're going to do several things. We're going to give Ukraine Tomahawk missiles to hit the facilities that make the weapons. We're not targeting, Ukraine's not going to be targeting Moscow. They're going to hit the weapons in the east, the facilities that make the weapons, which means we don't need to spend that much more money on defensive weapons. We're going to target those systems. Then we're going to keep on targeting the oil production and, more importantly, the shadow fleet. President Trump does not like that Russia is putting out tankers through European waterways and then selling them around the world. That's another part of this plan. If we tighten the noose, then we can get back to the table. But President Trump is very clear. He wants this to end.
Yeah, you heard President Trump saying yesterday from the White House, making comment or referring to the gas lines that are forming in Russia. So to your point, those drone strikes seem to be really having a big impact. But Tomahawk missiles, Andrij, other level. I mean, every single military general I've had on our show here has said they would not like to see Tomahawk missiles go to Ukraine. You can tell us right now you're not going to hit Moscow, but one goes errant and we are at another level, for the entire world. So if it's a no-go for Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, what other types of weapons and aid could Zelenskyy ask for and could be useful?
Well, let's game plan this like President Trump does, because he knows that this is not about a single day delivery. So first of all, President Trump will come to an agreement. We're all expecting with President Zelenskyy that there's going to be a certain amount of Tomahawks authorized, including some kind of mobile launchers, because Ukraine's not going to fire these from submarines like the United States. This will take several months to both train up the Ukrainian personnel to use them, as well as the delivery, remembering that we're in a shutdown. So we're not going to be sending new types of weapons without export controls and European customs, et cetera. This will probably take at the earliest at the end of December for us to see Ukrainian military have these. But what does this do? Much like the United States had to argue with Europe to say, listen, you need to send more things to Ukraine. And this happened with the Abrams tanks. The United Kingdom wouldn't send their Challenger tanks, or Germany wouldn't send their tanks until we sent them something. So President Trump is cutting off this conversation. He says he's looking at Europe and says, I'm going to send them a 1,000-mile rocket. What are you going to do? Because Germany has been sitting on their 500-mile Taurus missiles, which Ukraine can and F-16s right now, and there's still more Storm Shadows and Scalps in Germany, in the UK and France. So President Trump, with this announcement, cuts off this debate. He says, Europe, you have the weapons too. You can send them directly to Ukraine that they can use now. And these aren't things that you need to worry about Moscow, et cetera. These are, again, longer range to target the energy facilities. And in the end, President Trump understands that this is going to be a win-win for the United States and Ukraine. Ukraine gets to stop the weapons facilities and target the oil, and the United States will boom in terms of liquefied natural gas to Europe. All our fossil fuel deliveries to Europe will only increase.
You've made the case. We'll see if Zelenskyy does as good of a job as you've done presenting the case here for that weaponry tomorrow at the White House. We'll see what comes of that meeting. Very quickly, before I let you go, Andrij, the last time you were with us, you and I, we were talking about the pathway to peace. I'm curious, if Tomahawk's no-go, you get other weaponry or defense and Europe engages. We have discussed the thousands of Ukrainian children that Ukraine says have been kidnapped by Putin. The First Ladies of both Ukraine and the United States, they've really kept that conversation in the headlines globally. Does your plan for peace, the vision that Ukrainians have for peace, does it include these children being returned at all costs?
100%. And I'm really grateful that you brought this up, because it was less than a week ago that the First Lady of the United States made an unexpected announcement at the White House that she had personally reached out. We all remember a letter that she hand dictated to be delivered to Putin in Alaska. As a result of those communications, she made sure that 8 children were returned to Ukraine of the nearly 20,000 that have been kidnapped. What we just saw at the United Nations was a coming together of various different leaders, many first ladies, absolutely, but also world leaders and countries who are committing to a committee for the return of all Ukrainian children. This will take a very long time. Some of these children will have to be searched for online. They will have to have their faces found online. Where did all these children go? But this is very similar to what happened at the end of World War II. It's something personal to my family and others, where Germany was doing the same thing, stealing children, telling them that they're going to be adopted as with new German parents. We need to make sure that what happened then never happens again. And I am grateful, as are the Ukrainian people, for the leadership that the First Lady sought. Nobody asked her to do this, I remind everybody. When she wrote that letter to President Putin, she did that on her own. And then when the First Lady of Ukraine met with her in New York in September, she personally thanked her for that initiative. Yeah, you said it had ripple effects. That letter from our First Lady here in the United States had ripple effects all across Europe, really shifted the conversation drastically. Andrij Dobriansky will keep this conversation about the kids in all of our interviews about Ukraine here on News Now. Director of Communications and Media for Ukrainian Congress Committee of America. Appreciate your thoughts and perspective. Thanks so much. Good to see you.